On planet Zarnok, nestled between violet mountains and glowing crystal fields, there was a futuristic place called Galaxy Ranch. Unlike any ordinary ranch on Earth, this one was run by a group of brilliant children and friendly robotic animals. The ranch grew hovercorn, anti-gravity fruits, and collected solar winds to power the nearby village. Every creature had a purpose. Almost every creature. Zugo was a Mech-Horse, shiny silver with copper circuits running down his sides, and a tail that doubled as a toolkit. Designed to help with transport, lifting cargo, and emergency alerts, Zugo had all the latest programming updates. He was fast, powerful, and smart. But there was just one problem. Zugo was incredibly lazy. While the robo-chickens clucked around, collecting solar seeds, and the turbo-sheep charged energy fences, Zugo preferred lounging in his auto-clean stable. It was equipped with a temperature control system, soft magnetic cushions, and a projector that displayed clouds so he could pretend to nap under the sky. Each morning, the ranch's leader, a kind and determined girl named Ilara, would approach his stable with hope in her eyes. "Zugo, want to help us carry the hover barrels today?" she'd ask cheerfully. Zugo would let out a long mechanical yawn, blink his neon blue eyes, and reply, "Maybe tomorrow. I need to run a full system scan." Very technical, very exhausting. This happened every day. The other robot animals had long stopped asking for his help. Buzz the bee drone handled all the air surveillance. Rusty the recycling bot sorted waste, and even the younger kids were managing heavy lifting with But Zugo, he found new excuses every day. From low battery warnings to firmware bugs, he became an expert in avoiding any kind of work. Ilara still believed in him. She remembered when he was first activated how he galloped with excitement, raced through obstacle zones, and rescued her drone when it flew too close to a lava vent. That version of Zugo had potential, but lately, all he did was snooze, dream, and snack on synthetic hay cubes that didn't even require chewing. One sunny morning, as the sky shimmered with floating satellites, an alert echoed across the ranch. "Warning, cosmic storm approaching. All systems prepare for lockdown." Everyone jumped into action. The robot animals synchronized their movements. The kids zipped into suits and activated the emergency protocol. Solar panels rotated to maximum charge. Food domes were sealed, and the storm shields began to lower. And Zugo, he was reclining in his stable, watching a hologram of rolling hills. He peeked out the door, saw the flurry of activity, and quickly ducked back inside. "Ugh, storms are so noisy. Not good for sleep mode," he muttered, curling up tighter on his magnetic cushions. Outside, Ilara was coordinating the final preparations. "Where's Zugo?" she asked Buzz, who hovered by with a scanner. "Hiding again," the bee drone replied, its wings buzzing with static. "He said something about system errors." Ilara sighed. She wanted to be mad, but more than that, she felt disappointed. She looked up at the approaching storm. The dark clouds weren't ordinary, they shimmered with electric blue and streaks of red plasma. It was a cosmic storm, unpredictable and dangerous. Back in the stable, Zugo glanced at the sky through a transparent panel in the roof. He watched as the clouds twisted unnaturally and the first bolts of space lightning cracked across the sky. Somewhere deep in his circuits, something felt off, a faint tug, a whisper of responsibility, but he shook it off, telling himself, "They've got it handled. I'll just stay out of the way." And with that, he rolled over and went back into sleep mode, completely unaware that the real test of his life was coming. And it wouldn't wait for tomorrow. The skies above Galaxy Ranch began to shift as the cosmic storm approached, painting the atmosphere with swirling streaks of red and violet. The wind carried a low hum, not like any normal breeze, but a steady vibration that made metal groan and screens flicker. Across the ranch, every system went into high alert. Ilara stood at the control tower, her fingers flying over the holographic display. "Buzz, confirm solar shield levels." "Rusty, lock down the storage domes." "Nova, keep the little ones inside the learning pods." Her voice was calm but firm, practiced from drills, yet laced with the seriousness of a real emergency. The robot animals rushed into action. Buzz zipped through the skies, checking force fields for weak spots. Rusty rolled toward the warehouse with a clatter of gears, while Nova, the cat-shaped bot with glowing paws, herded the younger children to safety. Like a mother cat protecting her kittens, the once playful and curious ranch transformed into a coordinated defense hub within minutes. Meanwhile, Zugo remained in his stable, which had dimmed its lights automatically to match his sleep mode. He peeked out again, watching the chaos unfold. A part of him felt the twinge of unease, but it was quickly drowned out by his favorite relaxing chime that played from the stable's speaker. "Don't stress. Rest is best," the soft voice repeated. He shifted, muttering, "I'm not built for storms. What if I get hit by space lightning, or worse, get my frame scratched?" Outside, the wind intensified, kicking up electrodust from the fields and sending it swirling like tiny lightning bugs. The atmospheric sensors buzzed wildly as they tried to adjust. The storm was moving faster than expected. Suddenly, the main warning siren blared across the ranch. "Gravity fence failure in Sector 4. Repeat. Gravity fence failure in Sector 4. The gravity fence was one of the most important structures on the ranch. It kept out asteroid creatures, strange, rocky beasts that drifted through space and fed on electrical energy. Without the fence, the entire ranch would be exposed to these unpredictable invaders. Ilara's eyes widened. No, not the gravity fence. Buzz responded immediately, zooming toward the broken section. But even his fast propellers struggled against the rising wind. Rusty tried to reroute power from backup sources, but the storm had begun to interfere with the signal frequencies. They needed someone fast, strong, and fully powered to reach the fence on the ground. Ilara bit her lip, then turned to the comms. "Scream, Zugo," she said, broadcasting directly into his stable. "You're the only one fully charged and not damaged by the storm yet. Please, we need your help." Inside his cozy stable, Zugo's ears twitched. He heard her voice clear, hopeful, and filled with trust. For a moment, he froze. The line went quiet. No one else called him. No one else had time to wait. But Ilara had still reached out to him. He glanced at the stormy sky once more, watching as red lightning forked in the distance. His body was perfectly functional. His hooves were magnetized and stormproof. His systems were green and ready. All he lacked was the will to move. Still, he stayed where he was, uncertain and afraid. Outside, the children struggled to keep the windshields in place. Sparks flew from the fence as asteroid creatures began to stir beyond the boundary line. Their rocky bodies glowed faintly with stolen energy. The time was running out. In the safety of his stable, Zugo turned over again, his glowing eyes reflecting the flicker of lightning. He told himself it wasn't his problem, but something in him, buried deep under laziness and excuses, was starting to awaken. Something he didn't recognize yet. The storm howled louder now, sweeping over Galaxy Ranch with a force no one had expected. The sky was a churning sea of glowing clouds and crackling bolts of red lightning, twisting into patterns that made the ground tremble. Inside the main control tower, Elaro stared at the flickering display with worry etched into her face. The gravity fence in Sector 4 had gone completely offline. Its usual humming barrier of blue light had disappeared, and in its place was an eerie silence. Beyond it, drifting among the floating boulders and space debris, something stirred, shadowy shapes with jagged edges and glowing cores. Asteroid creatures. They had no eyes or mouths, but their senses could detect electromagnetic signals from miles away. Once drawn to energy, they absorbed it greedily, often damaging entire systems beyond repair. Elara knew if they reached the ranch's power grid, it wouldn't just shut the ranch down, it could spark a chain reaction and destroy everything. Buzz. The B-drone buzzed past her head, sparks flickering from his wings. Emergency field generators failing. Too much interference. Rusty, Ilara called. The recycling bot's voice came through the comms in broken static. Trying to reroute. Not enough time. They needed a physical override. At the fence control node, a small terminal hidden inside a service pod at the far edge of the ranch, now surrounded by storm winds and incoming creatures. None of the children could reach it in time. The robots were either damaged or unable to withstand the gravitational shifts caused by the storm. Ilara glanced toward Zugo's stable. Still closed, still dark. Her hope began to slip. In the comfort of his stable, Zugo watched the storm through his roof panel. He could see Sector 4 barely. It was far, and the path was treacherous, with rocky hills and loose terrain. He was afraid he'd never actually run during a storm before. What if his systems shorted? What if he broke down and no one found him? But then he saw something that made his circuits freeze. A glowing asteroid creature had crossed the invisible border and slithered into the ranch perimeter. Its spiked body pulsed with energy as it rolled across the solar fields, causing lights to flicker and alarms to scream. Another followed, and another. Buzz dove in, trying to distract them, but one sent a jolt of energy that sent the little drone crashing to the ground, twitching. Zugo sat upright. Buzz, hurt. He stared at the emergency light blinking above the stable door. He thought of Ilara's voice. "Please, we need your help." Zugo slowly stepped outside. The wind nearly knocked him off his hooves, but he planted his legs firmly and powered up his stabilizers. Red lightning flashed nearby, making his metal frame glow for an instant. Then he began to run. His legs powered through the storm with surprising strength. Each hoof strike echoed against the rocky ground, sending sprays of dust and sparks into the wind. He dodged flying debris and leaped over a fallen solar panel. The asteroid creatures sensed movement and began slithering toward him, their jagged edges scraping the ground. Zugo's speed increased. His systems, long underused, whirred with new life. His sensors locked onto the terminal at Sector 4. He reached it in less than a minute. Chest heaving, circuits buzzing with adrenaline. He kicked open the hatch and plugged in his tail interface. Lines of code flowed across his visor. He overrode the system and activated the fence reboot. A massive hum rose from the ground as beams of blue light surged upward, forming a shimmering wall just in time. The asteroid creatures slammed into it and bounced off with a high-pitched screech. They tried again, then slowly retreated into the distance. Back at the control tower, Ilara's screen flickered back to life. Fence restored. Power stabilized. And in the middle of the storm, standing tall and glowing faintly from the light of the restored fence, was Zugo, no longer hiding, no longer lazy, and no longer afraid. Zugo stood in front of the glowing gravity fence, his sides rising and falling as steam hissed from his vents. The red glow of the storm above reflected off his metallic frame, and the wind howled around him like a warning. Yet for the first time in his life, he wasn't trying to hide from it. He had run through the chaos, faced the storm, and stopped the asteroid creatures from breaking through. But even now, he didn't feel proud. He felt something else. Behind him, the ranch was still in turmoil. Panels had been torn loose, and the protective domes flickered uncertainly. Kids ran between shelter pods, helping each other. Buzz lay crumpled near the crops, his wings sparking feebly. Ilara was still shouting instructions from the control tower, trying to keep systems online. The danger wasn't over. Zugo turned, his gaze toward the valley leading back to the heart of the ranch. He hesitated only a moment before sprinting again, faster than ever. The wind bit at his armor, and pieces of debris flew past him, but his sensors were locked on the fallen drone. As he reached Buzz, he quickly lowered his neck and used a microconnector from his main to recharge the B-drone's power cell. Buzz's lights flickered. Zugo, is that you? Zugo gave a small nod, his voice serious. Come on, we're not done yet. Together, they rushed toward the solar field, where the wind had ripped a huge hole in the ground panel. Sparks were flying, threatening to ignite the energy cells stored beneath. Zugo activated his magnetic hooves and carefully stepped onto the shattered grid, using his weight to press the wires back into place. Buzz hovered above and sprayed insulation foam to prevent further damage. Zugo moved without complaint, without excuse, and without delay. At the control tower, Ilara watched the surveillance feed. Her jaw dropped as she saw the Mech-Horse weaving through the chaos, plugging power lines, guiding smaller bots, and warning kids away from danger zones. He's helping, one of the younger kids said. Not just helping, Ilra replied, eyes wide with wonder. He's saving the ranch. Zugo didn't hear the praise. He was too focused. For so long, he'd believed he wasn't needed, that his comfort was more important than his purpose. But now, each time his systems hummed in perfect sync, each time he made a split-second decision to stop a fire or reroute a power surge, something inside him came alive. He wasn't just built to be fast or strong. He was built to make a difference. By the time the storm finally began to pass, the ranch was damaged but still standing. No one had been seriously hurt. The gravity fence was intact, and the asteroid creatures had drifted back into the void. Zugo stood in the middle of it all, his metal legs coated in dust and scorch marks. The once lazy Mech-Horse who never wanted to work was now the hero who had run the hardest, risked the most, and stayed awake when everyone else needed him. Ilara walked up to him, her hair a mess, cheeks smudged with soot. She looked at him with quiet gratitude. You didn't have to do any of that, she said softly. But you did. Zugo lowered his head. I should have helped long ago. I didn't know what it felt like to matter. Ilara smiled. You mattered the moment you were built. You just had to believe it. The wind calmed. The clouds parted, and for the first time since the storm began, a soft glow of light returned to the skies over Galaxy Ranch. Zugo stood taller. Not just a machine anymore, but a teammate, a friend, and a symbol of change. The sun rose gently over Galaxy Ranch, casting golden light across the shimmering fields and domes. The storm had passed. What was left behind was a patchwork of bent panels, flickering lights, and scorched ground, but also a quiet sense of victory. The asteroid creatures had been driven away. The gravity fence held strong, and most importantly, everyone was safe. Zugo stood at the edge of the ranch, overlooking the newly repaired barrier. The storm had left scratches on his armor and blackened streaks along his legs, but he didn't mind. For the first time in his life, they felt like something to be proud of. He turned and trotted back to the main courtyard, where Ilara and the other children were organizing cleanup crews. Rusty was hauling broken solar panels to be recycled, and Nova was scanning the fields for any electrical damage. Even Buzz, who had been almost destroyed during the storm, was zipping through the air again, good as new thanks to Zugo's quick thinking. As Zugo approached, conversations paused. Heads turned. All eyes were on him. At first, he hesitated. The old Zugo would have backed away, returned to his stable, and pretended he didn't notice. But not today. He kept walking until he stood in front of the group, his mechanical tail swaying gently. Ilara stepped forward, a smile tugging at her lips. Zugo, she said, her voice loud enough for all to hear. You saved us. Zugo lowered his head humbly. I only did what I should have done from the beginning. You did more than that, she replied. You were brave, fast, and selfless. You protected this ranch. You protected all of us. One of the younger children clapped, then another. Soon, the whole courtyard erupted in cheers and whistles. Buzz did a loop in the air. Rusty flashed his headlight in rhythm, and Nova meowed a robotic jingle. Zugo's ears twitched, overwhelmed by the praise. He had never felt like this before, not when he was lounging in his cozy stable, not when he was avoiding work, not even when he was first activated. This feeling, this warmth in his chest, circuits came from knowing he had made a real difference. Elara raised her hand, and the cheering quieted. From now on, she declared, Zugo will be the official guardian of Galaxy Ranch. He'll help us protect the fields, monitor the skies, and lead emergency response when we need it most. Zugo's eyes widened. Me a guardian? You've already proved you're ready, Elara said, but only if you want it. Zugo paused for a long moment. The old voice in his mind tried to whisper, wouldn't it be easier to go back to resting, to hide when it's hard? But it was drowned out by another voice, stronger now, the one that had pushed him through the storm. He nodded. I want it. From that day forward, Zugo changed. He woke up before anyone else, jogging around the ranch to check for trouble. He helped the kids with heavy lifting, carried supplies, and even ran training drills with Buzz and Nova. He no longer used excuses or faked system errors. He didn't hide from work, in fact. He looked forward to it, and though the stable remained open for him to rest, he only returned to it when the day's work was truly done. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the glowing fields, Elara visited him outside the stable. She sat beside him quietly. You've come a long way, she said, brushing a hand along his shoulder plate. Zugo gazed out over the peaceful ranch, the lights twinkling like stars. I used to think comfort was the best thing in the world, he said. But it's nothing compared to purpose. Elara smiled. You found yours. And together, under the quiet Sarnak sky, they sat in silence, one human, one Mech-Horse watching over a home they had both helped protect.